OpenClaw is absolutely everywhere. With it becoming the fastest growing Git repo of all time, it's clear that everyone wants an AI personal assistant. But with safety concerns, distracting context, and an agent that's trying to do everything at once, people are looking for a better way. Because OpenClaw's a black box. It's frustrating to program and use, and you can't even tell where the changes you make are landing. But what if there was a way to turn it into a glass box? A programmable system that you can work with the same way you use Claude Code, and you still get to use your Claude Max plan, which makes this so much cheaper and better than running OpenClaw. In today's video, I'm going to show you the 4 zones that make up an agent, and the one command that makes programming agents with Claude Code a reality. I'm Roman. I published a top 3% paper at NeurIPS, the largest AI conference in the world. Now, I'm on a mission to push coding agents to their absolute limit. So let's start with the 4 zones that turn a simple LLM call into an agent. First, we have the trigger, which is what wakes our agent up. This can be a heartbeat, a cron job, or even a simple Telegram message. Without this, the agentic flow never begins. Then there's the context, what gets injected into the context window, or the model's working memory on every turn. This consists of things like system prompts, previous messages in the conversation, and Claude.md. Next, there's the tools, which is what gives the LLM the ability to read, write, and interact with the user's computer. This is like giving the brain a body. Tools are executed when the models output a sequence of tokens that triggers the tool. Examples of tools are Bash, MCP servers, and Gmail API. And finally, there's the output, which is where the work goes and how the model maintains statefulness, since the models forget everything between turns of a conversation. Luckily, in Claude Code, there's a powerful command that allows us to control all of these in just a couple lines of bash. It's called Claude-P, and it's the secret to building a powerful sniper agent that automates work for you. Let me show you this in action with a real-life example. Let's say we're building an email agent. The agent will wake up through a Telegram message and start work immediately. The agent is given read-only access to however many recent emails you specify. The agent reports back in a number of seconds with a briefing on your recent emails, while exclusively using your Claude Max tokens. Meanwhile, OpenClaw would cost $1 to $3, take minutes of automating your browser, and maybe even time out. So let's turn this into a live demo. I went ahead and typed out the specs and implementation plan for this agent. And the reason I'm walking you through the specs instead of just typing everything into Claude is because in agentic coding, the specs are the primary source of truth. For trivial builds like this, we can instantly recreate the entire agent from just this one file alone. So it's effectively a long prompt. Let's walk through it. We start with the email agent. This is an agent that gets launched via Claude-P, which is headless Claude, meaning Claude code running non-interactively in a bash script. So this means no human in the loop and no UI. Basically, this is the equivalent of opening up a new terminal and launching Claude. And this is important because this can do everything that tools like OpenClaw can do because you have full control over every single little piece of it. You can even read the code if you want. There are no abstraction layers. You're not coding the agent by asking the agent to code itself. So basically, the agent is comprised of 4 zones. Zone 1 is what triggers it. That's Telegram and a cron job. Zone 2 is what gets injected on every turn, which is the system prompt. Zone 3 is the model's output and memory, and Zone 4 is the tools it can call. So we start with the environmental variables. We just need 4 things: the Telegram token, the allowed user ID, the Gmail address, and the Gmail app password. That's the entire configuration. And I've already set those up ahead of time, just so we can get started. Now, I also set up the directory structure, which is basically a workspace folder where the agent actually wakes up and operates, as well as some supporting files. In this case, it's not going to be writing any files, but typically for more complex agents, you're going to want an isolated workspace where it can actually do code. Now, we have Zone 1. Zone 1 is effectively 2 ways the bot can be woken up in this case. First, the bot is going to be connected to Telegram. Now it pulls for new messages, and when one comes in from the user, we're going to call Claude-P in the headless mode inside of its workspace. Then second, that's a daily cron job at around 9 a.m. that wakes the agent up and asks it for a briefing for the last 24 hours of emails. That's the thing people get excited about with tools like OpenClaw, which is the bot reaching out to you proactively. It feels like magic. But under the hood, it's literally just a cron job or a heartbeat. So Zone 2. Well, Zone 2 is a system prompt. In this case, I already wrote it out in email agent prompt.md, and it basically tells the model that it's an email triage agent and that it should run fetch emails.py and basically summarize concisely to the user. So you can change this as you want to change the behavior. If you want it to be a spicy boy, you can add in a little chili emoji into the system prompt and tell it to use that. Whatever you want. That's kind of the magic that makes OpenClaw special, and we can do that with our sniper agents here. So basically, we're going to use the append system prompt flag, which adds onto Claude Code's existing system prompt instead of replacing it. But here's an interesting little thing. If you wanted an even leaner agent, you could use the -- system prompt flag instead, which actually replaces Claude Code's entire system prompt. And you can do the same thing with tools using -- tools and then an empty array or an empty string to strip out all the tool definitions. Now, at that point, Claude-P is effectively the same thing as a raw API call, which is a pretty interesting option if you're on the max plan and you don't want to deal with API keys. So then we move into Zone 3, which is going to be session persistence. Now, Claude-P supports this natively through the -- resume flag, so the agent remembers context across messages. This is a super nice quality of life thing to have, so we don't have to be messing around with session persistence, JSON, or anything like that. We can add a little reset command so the user can clear the session at any time to prevent context rot. Or you could have no session persistence and just have it clear upon each message. Now, every time the agent has a response, typically a summary of your emails, it's going to reply back through Telegram. Now we have Zone 4, which is the tools. So the agent is allowed to use bash and read, which is going to allow it to call fetch emails.py through bash using the tools flag. Now this fetch emails.py script is basically connecting to Gmail via IMAP and fetches the last 24 hours of emails. So basically we can ask it, go ahead and make that script. The model's job is simple in this case, which is going to improve performance by quite a bit. And finally, we have the implementation details, which is typically going to be in a separate script, but in this case, since it's a very simple demo, we'll just put it here. So for safety purposes, we're going to only allow responses from the allowed user ID. We're basically going to use the Sonnet model as the default, and we're going to create this email agent right now. I'm basically telling the model that. And then you're going to use the template from what's currently in agent.sh, which I already set up. The reason is so that it doesn't have to read the environmental variables itself. Then we're going to finish the agent script, create the fetch email script, and use Claude Code if it needs help. Use the Claude Code guide agent. And then finally, just to prevent little issues, we're going to say that no message should be processed more than once, and the script should be fault tolerant. This is that uniqueness clause. So basically, let's see what this looks like in action. Obviously, since we're using Telegram, we can just go ahead and text it anything at any time from anywhere. We just have to have our computer running, very similar to OpenClaw. So we can say something like, summarize my last 10 emails. And then voila, we have basically a categorizing of our last 10 emails and anything worth reading. Now you can prompt it any way that you want. That's the beauty of this. And you don't have to have it prompt itself. You can just prompt it with Claude Code by changing the markdown in the system prompt to the agent. If you want to build your dream business using Claude Code, join the #1 agentic coding community on Skool. I'll see you in there.